All right, so today we're going deep on Bitcoin.
Ooh, Bitcoin.
Yeah, with Michael Saylor.
Michael Saylor, okay.
He is the chairman and CEO of MicroStrategy,
Right.
and you might know him as the guy who went all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, he's a huge Bitcoin bull,
Yeah.
leading his company to make some pretty bold investments, you could say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this deep dive is going to be extra interesting because we're breaking down an interview he did with
Okay.
Dave Portnoy,
Dave Portnoy, all right.
the Barstool Sports founder.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Dave has been pretty open about his
Yeah.
up and down relationship with Bitcoin.
Yeah, he's had a wild ride, hasn't he?
He's bought it, sold, it got tied up in that whole FTX drama.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah, he's been through it.
So we're going to see if Saylor can convince a skeptic like Portnoy,
Okay.
and maybe even you listening at home,
Yeah.
that Bitcoin is the real deal.
This is going to be good. A true battle of the minds.
Right. Okay. So right off the bat,
Yeah.
Saylor uses this great sports analogy to explain Bitcoin.
Okay.
I like a good analogy.
To Portnoy, who says straight up, he's not really a crypto expert.
Right.
He says, imagine there's a basketball team
Okay.
with LeBron James and Michael Jordan,
Wow. Okay.
and you get to join their team.
Nice.
So you might not be scoring like 100 points like them,
Right.
but you're all winning.
Yeah.
You're all getting rich together.
Okay. I'm following you.
It's
That
great.
analogy.
And then he goes even further and says that this Bitcoin game
Okay.
is rigged in favor of the individual.
Uh-huh.
He says it's a system designed for everyone to win over time,
Okay.
like some kind of built-in prosperity engine.
So it's a guaranteed win? Is that what he's saying?
Basically, yeah. But is it really that simple?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right.
It sounds a little too good to be true.
Yeah, and it's interesting because
Yeah.
Portnoy brings up this idea he's heard from other Bitcoin people
Okay.
about how it's not just about making money.
Yeah.
It's about something bigger,
Something good for the world.
Mm.
Like it's almost like,
like a moral obligation to get into Bitcoin.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a moral obligation.
I've heard that argument before. It's a fascinating one.
And Saylor just dives right in and says,
Okay.
Bitcoin is about economic empowerment and financial freedom.
Okay.
Especially, he says, for people in places like Lebanon, Iraq, Syria,
Right.
where the traditional systems have failed them.
Yeah.
He paints this picture of people trapped in these broken economies
Yeah.
and Bitcoin being like their lifeline to a better future.
That's a powerful image for sure.
So to really hammer home his point,
Yeah.
he uses this really striking analogy.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
He says Bitcoin is like buying property
Okay.
in prime Manhattan real estate
Okay.
back in the 1600s.
The Cyber Manhattan analogy, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He loves this one.
Classic Sailor.
And it really is effective
It is.
because he's saying
Yeah.
that just like owning a piece of Manhattan back then
Uh-huh.
would made you a fortune today. Bitcoin is the prime real estate of the digital world,
Okay.
destined to skyrocket in value over time.
He's making some bold claims.
He is, and he drops a stat to back it up too.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says, if you had bought just $1 worth of Manhattan Island
Okay.
in the 1600s,
Right.
it would be worth billions today.
Wow.
And he believes Bitcoin has that same potential.
So you're saying he thinks Bitcoin is going to make people billionaires?
That's what he's saying. Do you think he's right?
Well, it's a compelling thought, but there are some pretty big differences between buying a piece of land and a digital asset like Bitcoin.
For sure.
I mean, for starters, Manhattan is a tangible thing.
Yeah.
It's a finite piece of land.
You can't just create more Manhattan.
Exactly right. But Bitcoin exists in the digital world.
Right.
It's subject to technology and code and all that.
And someone could theoretically just create another cryptocurrency.
Exactly, and make it even more scarce than Bitcoin.
Right. Good point. So Portnoy, being the skeptic he is,
Yeah.
digs a little deeper
Okay.
and asks Saylor about his own doubts,
Mm-hmm.
especially during that massive Bitcoin crash in 2020
Oh, yeah, that was a rough one.
when the price just plummeted.
A lot of people lost a lot of money.
You have to admit, it's a question a lot of us would ask.
Oh, absolutely. After a crash like that, even the most diehard believers
Mhm.
are going to have some second thoughts.
Right. It's human nature.
Totally.
And Saylor, to his credit, admits he wasn't totally immune to doubt.
Okay.
But here's the crazy part.
What's that?
Instead of selling off his Bitcoin when the price tanked,
Yeah.
he actually doubled down
He doubled down.
on his investment.
Wow, that takes some serious guts.
Talk about conviction.
Yeah, he's all in.
He's not just like a fair weather Bitcoin fan, you know?
Right.
He's got skin in the game.
He's putting his money where his mouth is,
Exactly. And he's willing to ride out the storm,
even when it gets really rough.
even when it gets rough.
That's interesting. It really speaks to the psychology of investing.
Right.
What makes someone like Saylor so unwavering in his belief.
Even in the face of huge losses.
Right. Is that level of conviction justified in the unpredictable world of crypto?
It's a gamble for sure.
It is.
And then Portnoy throws another curveball at him.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
He brings up the fact that there are thousands of other cryptocurrencies out there.
Yeah, that's true.
Why Bitcoin, he asks.
Good question.
Why not one of these other shiny new coins?
Yeah, why not jump on the next big thing?
So what does Saylor say sets Bitcoin apart?
Yeah. What makes it the chosen one in his eyes?
His answer gets to the core of what Bitcoin is all about.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
He argues that Bitcoin isn't just another cryptocurrency. It's a protocol, a foundational layer upon which everything else is built.
So it's like the foundation of the house.
Exactly. He even compares it to fundamental forces like electricity and math.
Wow. He's putting Bitcoin on a pedestal with some pretty big hitters.
He is. But what does that even mean for the average person?
Right. What makes a protocol so special when we're talking about Bitcoin?
He's getting at this idea of decentralization.
Decentralization. Okay.
Which is this core principle of Bitcoin.
Right.
So think of it like this. Instead of having a single bank or government controlling the money supply, Bitcoin is controlled by a distributed network of computers all over the world.
So no one's really in charge.
Right.
It's like a hive mind or something.
Exactly. No one person or entity can manipulate the system or shut it down.
Huh. That's pretty interesting.
And that, according to Saylor, is a game changer.
Okay.
It's about taking power away from these centralized institutions and giving it back to the individual.
It's a powerful idea for sure, especially in a world where trust in institutions is kind of eroding.
Right. But is it realistic?
Yeah, that's the question. Can a decentralized system really compete with these established financial giants?
And then he brings it back to his company, MicroStrategy.
Okay.
Explaining that their role is to act as this bridge.
It's a bridge. Okay.
Between traditional finance and the crypto world.
So they're making it easier for investors to get into Bitcoin.
Yeah, essentially that's their goal.
That's pretty smart considering how much interest there is in Bitcoin from Wall Street and big institutions these days.
Right. It shows that the lines between traditional finance and crypto are blurring.
Definitely a sign of the times. What do you think this means for the future of investing?
It's hard to say, but it's definitely something to watch.
For sure.
Now, as the interview goes on, it seems like Portnoy is actually warming up to Bitcoin.
Oh, really?
After hearing Saylor's arguments.
Huh. The power of persuasion.
Right. He even starts to think about putting a good chunk of his own portfolio into it.
Wow. So what would it mean if more people like Portnoy with their huge followings decided to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon?
Right.
Could it create a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Potentially.
Drive the price even higher?
Yeah. And then what about the risks?
Right. We haven't really talked about the downsides yet.
That's true. Saylor paints a pretty rosy picture.
He does.
But Bitcoin is still highly volatile.
Oh, yeah.
And its future is far from certain.
Yeah, there are concerns about regulation, security breaches, the environmental impact of mining, all that stuff.
Exactly. And let's not forget the possibility of a black swan event.
Oh, all right.
That could send the price crashing down.
Yeah, that's always a possibility.
So it's important to balance Saylor's optimism with a healthy dose of realism.
Absolutely. Bitcoin might have the potential to change the world.
It might.
But it also comes with its fair share of risks.
Right, and that's what makes this whole discussion so fascinating.
It really is.
It's a high-stakes game with potentially huge rewards.
Yeah.
But also significant risks.
You got to weigh the pros and cons.
Exactly. So before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, we have a question for you to ponder.
Okay, hit me.
Saylor states in the interview, quote, "No one's ever lost money buying Bitcoin and holding it for 4 years."
That's quite a statement.
It is.
Especially in the world of crypto, known for its wild price swings.
Exactly.
So is holding Bitcoin for 4 years really a guaranteed path to profit?
What do you think?
Well, it's important to remember that past performance doesn't guarantee future results.
Right.
And while it's true that Bitcoin has seen some incredible gains over its history,
It has.
it's also experienced some pretty dramatic crashes.
Yeah.
So Saylor's statement, while attention-grabbing, needs to be taken with a grain of salt.
Right, and this is where we need to separate the hype from the reality.
That's that.
Like you said before.
Yeah.
Saylor's a master storyteller.
He is.
And he weaves this narrative about Bitcoin being a store of value, a hedge against inflation.
Right.
Ultimately, a better form of money than what we have today.
And that's a powerful narrative.
It is.
One that resonates with a lot of people.
For sure.
Especially those who are disillusioned with traditional financial systems.
Yeah, they see it as a way out.
Yeah.
So Saylor often compares Bitcoin to digital gold.
Digital gold. Okay.
Arguing it's even better.
Go.
Because it's more portable, divisible, and secure.
Right. So you can send Bitcoin to anyone in the world instantly.
Right.
You can divide it into tiny fractions. And it's protected by cryptography.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And he paints this picture of a future.
Okay.
Where Bitcoin becomes the dominant global currency.
Wow.
Replacing fiat currencies.
So like the dollar, the euro, the yen, all of them.
All of them.
Wow.
He sees them as prone to manipulation and devaluation.
So he's saying Bitcoin is the solution.
He's saying it's the future of money.
That's a radical vision.
It is.
It really makes you think about what a Bitcoin-based economy would actually look like.
Right.
What would happen to banks and governments?
Yeah.
How would everyday transactions work?
Would we all be constantly checking the Bitcoin price?
Yeah.
On our phones?
To see how much our groceries cost.
It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
To think about.
So to really understand Saylor's argument, we need to dig a little deeper into this whole concept of decentralization that he keeps talking about.
Yeah, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot in the crypto space.
It does.
But what does it actually mean in practical terms?
Right.
And why does Saylor believe it's so crucial to Bitcoin's success?
Okay, so imagine a network of computers spread across the globe.
Okay.
All working together to maintain a secure and transparent ledger of transactions.
Okay.
That's essentially what the Bitcoin blockchain is.
Right.
And because this network is decentralized, there's no single point of failure.
Okay.
No central authority that can control or manipulate it.
Right.
This is in stark contrast to traditional financial systems where power is concentrated in the hands of a few.
So it's about shifting the balance of power.
Exactly.
Taking it away from those centralized institutions and giving it back to the people.
As Saylor puts it.
But is that really how it works in practice?
That's a good question.
Are there any potential downsides to a decentralized system like this?
Right. Could it create chaos or instability?
Those are valid concerns.
The decentralization comes with its own set of challenges.
Like what?
Well, for one, it can be more difficult to reach consensus and make decisions in a decentralized system.
Makes sense.
There's also the risk of bad actors exploiting vulnerabilities in the system.
Right.
And then there's the question of regulation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to regulate cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And decentralization makes that even more complex.
So while decentralization might sound appealing in theory,
it does.
It's not without its practical challenges.
Definitely something to keep in mind.
Right. And it's something potential investors should definitely consider.
For sure.
But let's go back to Saylor's argument for a second.
Okay.
He seems convinced that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that truly embodies these qualities of decentralization, security, and scarcity.
Right, but are there other cryptocurrencies out there that make similar claims?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are thousands of altcoins vying for attention.
Right.
And many of them tout features like decentralization and security.
So what does Saylor say sets Bitcoin apart?
What makes it stand out from the crowd?
Well, he argues that Bitcoin has a few key advantages that set it apart.
Like what?
First, there's the first mover advantage.
Ah, the OG.
Right? Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency.
Sure.
And it's had over a decade to establish itself.
Yeah.
Build a robust network and gain widespread adoption.
It's like the Google or Amazon of the crypto world.
Exactly. It's got that brand recognition and a proven track record.
Okay, I see.
And then there's the sheer size and strength of the Bitcoin network. It's the most widely used and most secure blockchain network out there.
So it's hard to hack.
Very hard.
Okay.
Which makes it extremely difficult for hackers to compromise.
Right. Safety in numbers kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And this network effect is one of Bitcoin's biggest strengths.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this ties back to that whole concept of decentralization.
Yeah.
Right? The more decentralized and widespread the network, the harder it is to control or manipulate.
It's like trying to take down the internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is something that Saylor emphasizes throughout the interview.
Okay.
He sees Bitcoin as a hedge against censorship and control. A way to protect your wealth from government overreach or financial instability.
That's a message that definitely resonates with some people.
It does.
People who are distrustful of authority or concerned about the future of the global economy.
Right. They see it as a safe haven.
Yeah, a way to take control of their own financial destiny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's not forget,
Yeah.
Bitcoin is still a highly volatile asset.
Okay.
Its price can swing wildly.
Yeah.
And it's still a relatively small market
Right.
compared to traditional assets like stocks and bonds.
Sure.
So while the potential rewards might be huge,
the risks are significant as well.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's crucial for anyone considering investing in Bitcoin to do their own research.
Right.
Understand the technology and be prepared for the volatility.
You got to know what you're getting into.
Exactly. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right.
And it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's bring it back to the listener.
All right, listener, time to chime in.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive with Michael Saylor.
From sports analogies to the intricacies of decentralization.
What are your thoughts so far?
Are you leaning more towards Team Bitcoin?
After hearing Saylor's arguments?
Or are you still skeptical?
It's certainly been an eye-opening conversation.
Saylor's passion for Bitcoin is contagious.
It is.
And he raises some thought-provoking points.
He does.
About the future of money.
Yeah.
And the potential of decentralized systems.
He does, doesn't he?
And whether you agree with him or not, right?
You have to admire his conviction.
Absolutely. But, look, we've discussed, it's important to approach Bitcoin with a critical eye.
For sure.
To weigh the potential rewards against the very real risks.
Exactly. And one thing that really struck me about Saylor's vision is the sheer scale of the change he's predicting.
It's huge.
He's not just talking about Bitcoin as an alternative investment or a digital store of value. He's envisioning a world where Bitcoin fundamentally reshapes the entire financial system.
It's a radical idea.
It is. Imagine a world where banks, as we know them, become obsolete.
Wow.
Where governments have less control over the flow of money.
Right.
Where individuals have more economic freedom and autonomy.
It's both exciting and a bit terrifying.
It is. It's like stepping into a science fiction novel.
Right.
Where the rules of the game have completely changed.
And that's what makes this whole Bitcoin phenomenon so fascinating.
It really is.
It's not just about technology or finance.
It's bigger than that.
It's about a fundamental shift in power dynamics.
A challenge to the status quo.
It's a reminder that the future is not predetermined.
Right.
It's something we're actively creating.
Yeah.
Through our choices and actions.
And whether Bitcoin ultimately succeeds or fails.
It's forcing us to confront some big questions.
It is.
About the role of money technology and power in our society.
It's a conversation that's just beginning.
It is.
And it's one that all of us need to be a part of.
We all have a stake in this.
Because whether we realize it or not, the future of finance is being shaped right now.
It is.
And it's going to impact all of our lives in profound ways.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
we
want to leave you with this.
Okay.
Don't just take our word for it or even Michael Saylor's.
Right.
Do your own research, explore the different perspectives, and form your own conclusions about Bitcoin and the future of money.
This is a space that's constantly evolving.
It is.
And there's always more to learn.
So stay curious. Stay informed.
Right.
And most importantly, stay engaged. Because the future of finance is being written right now.
It is.
And you have a role to play in shaping it.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that matters.
Until then, keep those brain cells firing. Yeah, it really gets you thinking, huh?
Especially for someone like Portnoy, who's looking for that long-term investment strategy.
Is holding Bitcoin for 4 years really a guaranteed path to profit?
What do you think?
Well, it's important to remember that past performance doesn't always predict the future.
For sure.
And while it's true that Bitcoin has had some insane gains over its history,
it has.
It's also had some pretty dramatic crashes.
Yeah.
So Saylor's statement, while it's definitely attention-grabbing, needs to be taken with a grain of salt.
For sure. And this is where I think we need to separate the hype from reality.
Yeah, separate the hype from the reality.
Like you were saying before, Saylor is a master storyteller.
He's a great salesman.
Right.
Very charismatic.
And he weaves this narrative about Bitcoin being this store of value.
Right.
A hedge against inflation.
Right.
Ultimately, a better form of money than what we have today.
It's a powerful story.
It is.
It's one that resonates with a lot of people.
For sure, especially those who are disillusioned with the traditional financial systems.
Yeah, they're looking for an alternative.
Right. They're looking for something different.
Exactly.
So Saylor often compares Bitcoin to digital gold.
Digital gold.
Arguing that it's even better because it's more portable, divisible, and secure.
So you're saying it's like gold 2.0.
Right. You can send Bitcoin to anyone in the world instantly. You can divide it into tiny fractions.
Okay.
And it's protected by cryptography.
Interesting. So it's like gold, but with superpowers.
Right. And he paints this picture of a future where Bitcoin becomes the dominant global currency.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. So he's saying Bitcoin is going to replace the dollar, the euro. Wow, that's a bold prediction.
He sees them as prone to manipulation and devaluation.
Right. He thinks they're all going to crumble.
And Bitcoin will rise from the ashes.
So he's saying Bitcoin is the solution to all our monetary problems.
It's the future of money.
Okay, so now we're getting into some seriously futuristic territory here.
We are.
I mean, it's hard to even imagine what a Bitcoin-based economy would look like.
Right.
What would happen to banks?
Would they even exist?
Governments? How would everyday transactions work?
Right. Would we all be constantly checking the Bitcoin price on our phones?
Just to buy a cup of coffee.
It's kind of mind-boggling to think about.
It is. It's a whole new world.
So to really understand Saylor's argument, we need to kind of dig deeper into this whole concept of decentralization.
Right, decentralization.
That he keeps bringing up.
Yeah, he loves that word.
He does. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot in the crypto space.
All the time.
But what does it actually mean in practical terms?
Yeah, and why is Saylor so obsessed with it?
Why does he think it's so crucial to Bitcoin's success?
Okay, so imagine this.
Okay.
A network of computers spread all across the globe.
Okay. I'm picturing it.
All working together to maintain this secure and transparent ledger of transactions.
Okay.
That's essentially what the Bitcoin blockchain is.
Right.
And because this network is decentralized, there's no single point of failure.
Okay, so it's like indestructible.
Pretty much no central authority can control or manipulate it.
Okay, that's a big difference from the traditional financial system where power is concentrated.
Yeah, in the hands of a few.
So it's about shifting the balance of power.
Right, taking it away from those centralized institutions.
And giving it back to the people.
Like Saylor says.
But is that actually how it works in practice?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right. Are there any potential downsides to a decentralized system like this?
Yeah. Could it create chaos?
Could it create instability?
It's not a silver bullet.
Right.
Decentralization comes with its own set of challenges.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it can be much harder to reach consensus.
Okay.
And make decisions.
In a decentralized system.
When you have thousands of people all trying to agree on something.
Yeah, that could get messy.
It could. There's also the risk of bad actors.
Oh, yeah.
Exploiting vulnerabilities in the system.
Like hackers and stuff.
Exactly. And then there's the question of regulation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Governments around the world are still grappling with how to regulate cryptocurrency.
Right.
And decentralization makes it even more complicated.
So while decentralization might sound great in theory...
It does sound appealing.
It's not without its practical challenges.
Definitely something for potential investors to consider.
Right. It's not as simple as it might seem at first glance.
Oh, it's not.
But let's get back to Saylor's argument for a minute.
Okay.
He seems really convinced that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that truly embodies these qualities of decentralization, security, and scarcity.
Yeah. But there are other cryptos out there that make similar claims.
So what makes Bitcoin so special in his eyes?
Why is it the chosen one?
Well, he argues that Bitcoin has a couple key advantages.
Oh, okay. I'm listening.
That set it apart from the rest.
Okay.
First, there's the first mover advantage.
Right. It was the original...
The OG crypto.
Bitcoin was the first one on the scene.
Right. And it's had over a decade to establish itself.
Yeah, to build a reputation.
Build a strong network. Gain widespread adoption.
It's like the Kleenex of crypto.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what it is.
Exactly. It's got that name recognition and that proven track record.
People trust it.
Okay, and then there's the sheer size and strength of the Bitcoin network.
So it's a big network.
It's huge. It's the most widely used and most secure blockchain network out there.
So it's like Fort Knox for digital currency.
Right.
Hard to break into.
Very hard, which makes it extremely difficult for hackers to compromise.
Right. Safety in numbers, I guess.
Right. The more people using it, the stronger it gets.
The harder it is to attack.
And this network effect is one of Bitcoin's biggest strengths.
Okay, I'm starting to see why Saylor's so bullish on it.
Right, and this ties back into that whole concept of decentralization. The more decentralized and widespread the network, the harder it is to control or manipulate.
It's like trying to shut down the internet.
Exactly.
Good luck with that.
And this is something Saylor emphasizes throughout the interview.
Okay.
He sees Bitcoin as this hedge against censorship and control, a way to protect your wealth from government overreach or financial instability.
So it was like a shield against the powers that be.
Yeah, it's a message that really resonates with people who are distrustful of authority.
Yeah.
Or worried about the future of the global economy.
People who want to take control of their own finances.
Exactly, but let's not forget, Bitcoin is still highly volatile.
It is very up and down.
Its price can swing wildly.
You never know what's going to happen next.
And it's still a relatively small market.
Right.
Compared to traditional assets like stocks and bonds.
It's still a relatively new asset class.
So while the potential rewards might be huge,
you can make a lot of money.
The risks are significant as well.
Definitely not for the risk averse.
Right. And that's why it's crucial for anyone thinking about investing in Bitcoin to really do their research.
Due diligence is key.
Understand the technology.
Absolutely.
And be prepared for the volatility.
You got to be ready for a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
It's not.
And it's definitely not for the fainter heart.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's bring it back to the listener.
All right, listeners, time to weigh in.
So what do you think? Are you on Team Bitcoin?
Well, I got to say, Saylor makes a pretty compelling case.
He does. He's very persuasive.
And he's clearly very passionate about it.
Yeah, whether you agree with him or not, you got to admire his conviction.
For sure. But like we've been talking about,
right,
it's important to approach Bitcoin with a critical eye. You know,
absolutely.
Weigh those potential rewards against the risks.
Right, because the risks are real.
They are. And one thing that really stood out to me about Saylor's vision is just the scale of the change he's predicting.
It's huge.
He's not just talking about Bitcoin as an investment or like a digital gold.
Yeah.
He's talking about a world where Bitcoin completely reshapes the entire financial system as we know it.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical idea.
It is. It's like, imagine a world without banks.
Right.
Where governments have way less control over money.
And individuals have like way more economic freedom.
Exactly. It's like a whole new world.
It's kind of exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It is, right? It's like stepping into one of those sci-fi novels where everything's different.
And that's what makes this whole Bitcoin thing so fascinating.
It really is.
It's not just about technology or finance.
It's about power.
Yeah, it's about who has the power.
And who controls the money.
It's a challenge to the way things have always been done.
Right. It's a reminder that the future isn't set in stone.
Yeah.
We're creating it right now.
With the choices we make.
And whether Bitcoin succeeds or fails.
It's making us ask some really important questions.
Big questions about money, technology, power.
And it's a conversation that's just getting started.
It is.
And it's one that we all need to be a part of.
Because the future of finance is being shaped right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect all of us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
we
want to leave you with this.
Don't just take our word for it.
Right.
Or Michael Saylor's.
Do your own research.
Explore different perspectives.
Come to your own conclusions.
About Bitcoin and the future of money.
This is a space that's constantly changing.
Always evolving.
So stay curious.
Stay informed.
And stay engaged.
Because the future of finance is being written right now.
And you have a role to play in shaping it.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that matters.
Until then, keep those brain cells firing.